True soulmates are not found by chance, but by providence, by a design that often works through signs more subtle than thunder but no less real. 2. When God is in the midst, the soul knows. There is a peace that defies logic, like a compass swinging true in a storm. When two lives are called toward the same direction, toward the same mission, it is not mere compatibility, but holy convergence. Divine unions often come not with fireworks, but with a strange stillness, where struggle softens and grace becomes the signature. A soulmate is not proven by feeling alone, but by endurance through trial. God allows testing to reveal what is truly timeless. 3. The true sign is not speed but sequence. When God writes the love story, the pacing is perfect even if perplexing. If you're here, you're likely hoping to find proof, a cosmic flare in the heavens, perhaps, or a voice from the clouds saying, "This is the one." But heaven rarely works with neon. It speaks in the hush, not the hailstorm. And so, I must tell you, this will not be a speech about romance. It is about revelation. You see, most people want to know who their soulmate is. But the better question is, how does the divine even whisper such a name? This message is not about matchmaking, it is about soul shaping, and I promise you this, if you lean in, not casually, but heart. First, you will not only learn how God leads you to your soulmate, you may also begin to recognize if he already has. There is a peculiar thing about divine appointments. They bring serenity into the spaces where we usually expect restlessness. In many things of life our heart races, fear, ambition, infatuation. But when God brings someone meant for your soul, there is an anchoring. You do not tremble with fear of losing them. You do not race to impress. Instead, you feel a stillness as if the soul has found its natural home. It is not the silence of absence, but the hush of holiness. Not the quiet of boredom, but the calm of belonging. You will not need to chase this person. You will find that they have arrived alongside you, not from your striving, but his timing. The second sign is more subtle, but no less supernatural. When God begins to guide you to your soulmate, he often aligns direction before affection. Two souls find themselves walking not to each other, but with each other, toward a shared call, a higher aim. Like two arrows loosed from different bows that meet not in midair, but at the target, you will begin to notice, we dream alike, we carry similar burdens, we are drawn to the same light. This does not mean you are the same. It means you are complementary, not identical notes, but a harmony, not mirrors, but puzzle pieces. If you find someone who helps you hear God more clearly, not less, pay attention. It is no small thing. Finally, the clearest sign may be the one you least expect, testing. God's hand often leads not with roses, but with thorns, not to harm, but to reveal. A relationship divinely led will still face hardship. The difference is this: hardship refines it rather than destroys it. You will find that your patience is tested, but you grow gentler, your faith is challenged, but it deepens, your selfishness is revealed, but it starts to die. And that person, they remain, not because they have to, but because they're becoming who they were made to be with you. Like gold in the fire, true love ordained by God glows hotter, not because it is easy, but because it is eternal. You asked for signs. Heaven answered not with a checklist, but with an invitation. Be still, walk with me, and trust my timing. If you are watching this because you are waiting, then wait with wonder. The God who made stars also makes soulmates. He doesn't rush, he doesn't guess, he knows. And if he is indeed leading you, it will not always be loud, but it will be unmistakable. 3 signs: the peace that steadies, the purpose that unites, and the fire that refines. If you have ears to hear, you'll find he's already speaking, and if your heart is ready, he may already be leading. There is a curious mistake we often make when we speak of love. We speak of it as if it were a game of chance, as though one might stumble upon their soulmate in the same way. One stumbles upon a coin in the street, an accident of timing, a lucky roll of life's dice. But the kind of love that matters, the kind that roots itself deep in the soil of eternity, does not operate by accident. It moves with purpose. It is summoned, not stumbled upon. It is not a matter of odds, but of orchestration. Love, when it is real and eternal, is a divine appointment. We live in an age enamored with choice. Dating apps, romantic films, and cultural scripts all teach us that finding a partner is about choosing wisely, scanning through profiles, comparing personalities, weighing pros and cons. But behind all this frantic choosing, we may be missing the deeper mystery, that the one who made you the very architect of your soul has not left you wandering blindly through the wilderness of desire. He has perhaps already written into your story a meeting, a moment, a person, and a path. Of course, God does not override your will. He is not a puppeteer, but neither is he passive. When you belong to him, your life, your steps, your pauses, your delays, your longing all come under his authorship. This includes love, and the truth, the profound truth we too often forget, is that what the world calls coincidence is often nothing more than divine timing in disguise. Consider how God moves throughout Scripture. Rarely does he shout, more often he whispers. Rarely does he force, more often he invites. And rarely does he act in ways that seem dramatic to the outside world. Instead, he weaves moments so ordinary that only the attentive heart will notice the thread of eternity running through them. So it is with soulmates. You may think your meeting with someone was casual, a seat next to a stranger on a bus, a shared laugh at a mutual friend's party, a conversation that began with borrowed pens or mismatched schedules. But there are no accidents in a life surrendered to God. If he governs the stars, he governs the stories of the people beneath them. Think of it this way: the kind of love that is born of heaven often enters your life not with fanfare, but with familiarity. It feels strangely known, hauntingly safe. There is a sense not of discovery, but of recognition, as if your soul has remembered something your mind has only just realized. It is not the dizzying high of infatuation, but the grounding calm of presence. This is not romance as entertainment. This is romance as calling. When God begins to lead you toward your soulmate, you may not see fireworks, but you will begin to sense an order, a rightness, a subtle unfolding of circumstances too aligned to be coincidence. Your prayers will start to echo in unexpected ways. Your steps will be guided without your knowing. What seemed random becomes rhythmic. There may still be doubts. The heart is rarely a still pool. It often churns with questions. But even amid the uncertainty, there will be an undercurrent of peace, a strange assurance that though you do not have all the answers, you are being led by one who does. And the more you trust him, the more clearly you'll see that love is not something you go out to catch, but something he brings into your path when you are ready not just to receive it, but to become the kind of person who can keep it. Perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. God prepares your soulmate not just for you, but he prepares you for them. The appointment is not only about timing, it is about transformation. The waiting is not punishment. It is preparation, and when the time is right, not your time, but his, the crossing will happen. So if you are still waiting, do not think yourself forgotten. You are not missing out on chance. You are being written into a story whose ending has already been seen by the author. Your longing is not overlooked. It is noted, treasured, and answered, but always with the care of eternity. For when God brings two souls together under his will, it is never by mistake. It is a meeting that was always meant to be. There are moments in life when reason fails to explain what the soul knows. These are the quiet mysteries of existence, the instinct to kneel in awe before a sunset, the ache of homesickness for a place you've never been, the sudden stillness in the heart when all logic demands noise. One of the clearest of these mysteries, and one most misunderstood, is the deep, inexplicable peace that descends when God is present in a decision, especially in something as life-altering and sacred as love. When God is leading you toward your soulmate, there may not be a sign you can point to, no voice from the heavens, no angelic visitation to affirm your path. Instead, what often comes is a gentle, steady peace, not the kind born from comfort or ease, but one that rises even in the presence of uncertainty. This is not a peace the world gives. It is not the absence of questions or risk. It is the presence of someone greater than your questions. It is the divine whisper that says, "This is safe, even if it's unfamiliar. Keep walking." This kind of peace is peculiar because it resists analysis. The world will ask you, "How can you be so calm? How can you be sure? What if it's all a mistake?" And you won't always be able to reply with data or reasons. What you will have is a kind of stillness that is not passive, but resolute, like a tree that knows, deep in its roots, that spring will come even while standing in the snow. People often expect love to come with overwhelming passion or euphoric confusion. But when love is divinely appointed, it more often comes with clarity. You are not racing to win someone's attention or panicking at the thought of losing them. Instead, you find yourself becoming more yourself. You are not diluted or disguised. You are not walking on eggshells. You are simply at rest. That is the curious thing about peace when it is of God. It does not dull the senses, it sharpens them. You see the person more clearly, not through rose-colored glass, but through honest light. And yet, even when you see their flaws, their wounds, their fears, something inside you says, "Still, yes," not because they are perfect, but because they are purposed. Peace, then, is not the absence of imperfection, it is the recognition of alignment. In this way, peace becomes the soul's compass. It may not tell you the distance or the duration of the journey, but it will keep pointing true north. You will notice this in the simplest ways, how your spirit settles when you're around them, how conversations unfold without masks, how time slows without boredom. There is no anxiety to perform, no frantic measuring of worth. You do not feel smaller in their presence, you feel safe, as though your full self has room to breathe, and yet do not confuse peace with ease. God does not promise that the road to your soulmate will be without struggle. What he promises is that in the center of his will, even amid trial, peace will anchor you. This is the kind of peace the world cannot counterfeit, because it is not built on circumstances. It is the very presence of God, woven into the ordinary so quietly that only a heart tuned to heaven will notice. You may have moments of fear, that is human, but fear does not rule you here. There is something deeper underneath it, a knowing. You'll find that when you try to walk away out of fear or overthinking, something sacred tugs you back, not obsession, not desperation, just a deep, soul-level pull, the kind that says, "Stay, trust, this is not the end of the road, this is the beginning." When God gives peace, he does not shout it down from the sky. He breathes it into the soul, and that peace becomes your confirmation, not because it makes everything clear, but because it makes you strong enough to keep walking through what is still unclear. The path may not be straight, the future may not be neatly drawn, but your soul begins to understand something your mind cannot quite grasp. I am being led, and that is enough. For when peace like that takes hold, the peace that passes understanding, you are not simply making a decision about a person. You are following a divine nudge that says, "This is the way, walk in it." And that voice, once heard, cannot be unheard. It may be quiet, it may be still, but it is sure, and in a world of noise and doubt, such peace is not just a sign, it is a miracle. When God begins to orchestrate a union between two souls, he rarely starts with romance. Instead, he begins with direction. You see, true love, Eternal love is not built merely on how two people feel about each other. It is built on what they are being called toward. The clearest sign that someone may be your soulmate is not found in how perfectly they mirror you, but in how profoundly your paths begin to align, not for comfort, but for purpose. There is a divine strategy at work in every life surrendered to God. The places you are drawn to, the burdens you carry, the vision that burns in your heart, these are not accidents of personality, but imprints of calling. And when God brings your soulmate into view, the resonance between your purpose and theirs becomes unmistakable. You begin to see not just emotional compatibility, but mission compatibility. Your lives do not just fit, they converge. This convergence may not happen dramatically. You might not both be called to the same career, the same church, or the same form of service. And yet, there will be a shared direction, a deep sense that you are journeying toward the same spiritual horizon. What draws you to the future begins to draw them too. You discover that your longings rhyme. Your values are not negotiated, but mutually recognized. You care about what they care about, not because you are trying to, but because the same voice is speaking to both of you. In many cases, this alignment of purpose comes long before affection. You may begin serving in the same place, reading the same scripture, or seeking the same answers in prayer without even realizing what God is weaving. Like two rivers fed by different springs, you will eventually find that your currents were always meant to merge. This is not the randomness of life. It is the deliberate hand of providence shaping both of you for each other, and more importantly, for the work you are to do together. When your soulmate appears, they will not be a detour from your calling. They will become a confirmation of it. Rather than distracting you from your spiritual purpose, they will deepen your commitment to it. They will awaken in you a hunger for more of God, not less. They will challenge your passivity. They will stir your courage, not because they are perfect, but because they are appointed. And you will begin to see how your separate strengths fit together in ways that prepare you for something neither of you could do alone. This is not always as glamorous as it sounds. Alignment of purpose often involves friction, pruning, and patience. It requires humility to admit that another person's insight may refine your own vision. It calls for maturity to walk together when the road is long and the future uncertain. But the fruit of this kind of partnership is unmistakable, not fleeting happiness, but enduring growth, not just shared interests, but shared obedience. Sometimes God allows time and distance to prepare two people individually before their paths intersect. It may take years, it may take brokenness. But when the moment arrives, and both hearts are rightly positioned, the recognition is quiet, but powerful. I see in you not only someone I love, but someone I am called to walk with. This is a holy moment, not made dramatic by external circumstances, but by the internal resonance of two souls hearing the same voice and saying the same yes. There is a difference between being in love and being in alignment. The world celebrates the former. Heaven builds on the latter. Two people aligned in God's purpose become more than lovers. They become instruments of His glory. Their union becomes a testimony, not of human desire, but of divine design. And when they move forward, they do so not in competition or confusion, but with clarity and unity. So if you are asking whether someone is meant for you, begin by asking this: are we being drawn toward the same light? Do our lives point in the same direction? Does our love call us to worship more deeply, serve more boldly, forgive more freely? For when God brings soulmates together, it is never just for the sake of personal happiness. It is for the sake of kingdom purpose. The joy that comes is not the goal. It is the fruit of lives that are properly aligned. And if such alignment is forming, quietly, steadily, even imperfectly, then do not rush past it. Do not overlook it for the sake of sparks or storybook sentiment, for in that convergence of direction, God is doing something sacred. He is not just writing a love story, he is writing a legacy. We are creatures who love order, even when we claim to chase freedom. We chart our days, predict our futures, and build invisible timelines around love, career, and success. And yet, just when we feel certain that we know what's next, just when the ground beneath us seems predictable, God moves. And often he does not move quietly, he interrupts. But his interruptions are not careless. They are not chaos. They are holy. There is a sacred beauty in the way God intervenes. When you have carefully designed a future for yourself, and it begins to unravel, not by failure, but by unexpected redirection, do not be too quick to grieve. Sometimes what you call a disruption is actually a divine unveiling. When God is leading you toward your soulmate, he often begins not by adding something, but by removing something. What you lose may hurt, but it may also be the only way your hands will be free to receive what is coming. Perhaps you plan to fall in love at a certain time, in a certain way, with a certain kind of person. Perhaps you imagined a path where things would fall into place neatly, without conflict or change. But God rarely conforms to our scripts. He rewrites them, and when he does not always offer explanations. He offers invitations. He may close doors you begged him to keep open. He may call you to move when all you wanted was to stay. And you may find that the very moment your plans seem shattered, something sacred is stirring beneath the surface. This is the pattern of the kingdom: death before resurrection, surrender before fulfillment. And in love, as in every other area of life, God is more concerned with your formation than your convenience. So when your plans are disrupted, when relationships end unexpectedly, when timing changes, when people drift or situations collapse, pause before you rush to label it as failure. It may be a holy disruption. There is a quiet mercy in God's interruptions. They are not punishment, but redirection. They pull you away from what would have kept you stagnant. They humble your assumptions. They slow you down long enough for your heart to catch up with his will. And in that slowing, you begin to see differently. You begin to sense that perhaps what you were chasing was not what your soul truly needed. God has a peculiar way of rearranging our steps, not just for better outcomes, but for deeper trust. When he interrupts, he is not abandoning you. He is preparing you, for the person he is leading you to may not look like what you expected. They may come from a different world, a different pace, a different past, and unless your eyes have been trained to see beyond the surface, you might miss the miracle standing right in front of you. It is often after a disruption that clarity begins. Your heart is softer, your prayers are more honest, your ears are finally quiet enough to hear not what you want to hear, but what is true, and slowly you realize that the interruption was not a detour. It was the road itself. When God leads you to your soulmate, he will often use disruption to protect you from your own impatience, from paths that seem good but are not right, from people who may fit your preferences but not your purpose. And sometimes the interruption comes not in loss, but in meeting someone who completely upends your expectations. You may feel unready, you may feel inadequate, but something in you knows this is not a mistake. This is the shift you didn't know you needed. Do not underestimate the moments when your plans fall apart. They may be the very threshold of the love story God has been writing all along. He is not cruel in his redirection. He is careful, like a composer pausing before the final note. He knows when the silence must come before the crescendo. So when life is disrupted, listen, look, wait. The next step may not be what you wanted, but it may be exactly what you were made for. Love, when it is divine, often begins in disruption, because before God brings two souls together, he first ensures that they are both listening. and the quickest way to tune the human heart to heaven is not always through comfort, but through interruption. And if you find yourself in the midst of one, don't fear it. Let it undo what it must. Let it empty what cannot stay. Because when the dust settles and the noise quiets, you may just find that what God has brought to you is not only what you never expected, but what your soul always needed. And in that moment you'll see the disruption wasn't random. It was wholly. There is a powerful, yet often subtle, difference between what the heart wants and what the soul needs. Our emotions, while a beautiful part of who we are not always the most reliable compass when it comes to decisions of great weight. Love, especially, is a territory where feelings can lead us joyfully or astray. It is not that emotions are bad. They are gifts, echoes of our humanity. But when left ungoverned, they can be like winds without a sail, powerful, aimless, and ultimately unanchored. That is why, when God is leading you to your soulmate, one of the most vital signs is the emergence of spiritual discernment rising above emotional impulse. Discernment is not simply intuition. It is not preference. It is not a flicker of attraction or a spark of chemistry. Rather, it is the quiet wisdom that flows from being anchored in God's voice. It is a listening that goes deeper than what the eyes see or the body feels. It is the capacity to recognize the eternal significance hidden in ordinary circumstances. When God is at work in leading you to someone, discernment becomes like a lantern on the path. It may not reveal the whole road, but it will illuminate the next step. The challenge is that emotional impulses often speak louder than discernment at first. The thrill of being noticed, the warmth of connection, the excitement of being pursued, these can be intoxicating. And yet, how many have mistaken that initial thrill for divine approval? How many have entered relationships that seemed so right in feeling, only to later find themselves adrift, wondering why peace never came to settle in the depths? This is not to diminish emotions. They have their place, but emotions must be examined, not enthroned. When feelings rise, we must ask, are these stirred by the Spirit or by the self? Discernment requires that kind of examination. It does not quench emotion. It refines it. It teaches us to pause before leaping, to pray before promising, to watch for the signs of alignment not only in the heart, but in the spirit. When God is leading you toward your soulmate, one of the clearest signs is that your desire for them begins to be shaped by your desire for God. You no longer want them merely because of how they make you feel, but because of how their presence deepens your pursuit of what is holy. They do not distract you from the path. They help you see it more clearly. Discernment helps you recognize this not just in moments of passion, but in quiet spaces. How you pray differently when they are near, how peace lingers after your conversations, how your vision for life seems more focused, not less. Spiritual discernment also protects you. It shields you from counterfeits, those relationships that feel urgent but lack substance. It teaches you to distinguish between chemistry and covenant, between charm and character. You begin to see what lies beneath the surface, not just how a person behaves, but what spirit they carry. You notice whether they bring confusion or clarity, pride or humility, fear or faith. And you learn, slowly but surely, to trust the Spirit's prompting above your own appetite for companionship. There is a kind of discernment that comes only through waiting. Waiting on God sharpens your spiritual senses. It purifies your motives. It breaks the illusion that urgency is a sign of truth. When you are being led by God, time does not pressure you. It prepares you. And so, when the right person comes into your life, you are able to receive them not with emotional desperation, but with spiritual peace. Your soul recognizes what your emotions might have overlooked. Perhaps that is the great paradox, that the truest love is not recognized by how quickly it stirs emotion, but by how deeply it anchors your spirit. Discernment gives you eyes to see this. It teaches you to ask different questions. Not just do I want this, but is this from God? Not just do they make me happy, but do they make me holy? Not just do they fit my expectations, but do they reflect God's design for me? You will know you are being led by discernment, not impulse, when love stops being about possession and starts being about purpose. When you are willing to walk away from what feels good if the Spirit says no, and when you are brave enough to embrace what feels unfamiliar because the Spirit says yes, and in that posture you will be ready, not just to fall in love, but to recognize it when it is from the hand of God. And that kind of recognition is not born in emotional excitement. It is born in the stillness of spiritual discernment, where His voice becomes louder than your own. In an age obsessed with immediacy, where decisions are made at the speed of emotion and relationships blossom and wither in the span of days, the idea that something sacred could take time to unfold feels foreign, even frustrating. Yet, one of the clearest and most profound signs that God is leading you to your soulmate is not found in a flash of inspiration or a whirlwind of affection. It is found in the slow, quiet work of time. Not the kind of time that breeds boredom or hesitation, but the kind that reveals truth. For what is real endures, what is divine deepens, and what is from God does not fade with exposure it strengthens. There is a holiness in consistency, a divine fingerprint in that which remains. In the early stages of any connection, it is easy to be enchanted. Words are new, glances feel electric, and every shared interest seems like a sign. But time tests all things, and time, though silent and invisible, is a faithful revealer. It peels back the layers we so easily hide behind and slowly exposes what lies at the core. This is not cruel, it is grace. Because when God sends someone into your life for a purpose as deep as lifelong union, He will allow time to test that purpose, not to discourage you, but to reveal the strength of the foundation being laid. Emotional sparks may ignite quickly, but it is consistency that sustains the flame. When someone is truly meant for you, you will not need to keep starting over. The relationship will not feel like a cycle of confusion, disappearing and returning, passion followed by silence. Instead, there will be a steady rhythm, even if quiet at times, a presence that does not demand attention to prove itself, but one that proves itself simply by staying. Enduring confirmation from God is not a loud, dramatic event. It is a pattern. It is seeing that over weeks and months, perhaps even years, a person's character remains true, their intentions remain honorable, their care does not diminish when the novelty wears off. Even when disagreements arise or distance stretches between you, there is still a thread tying you together, not out of compulsion, but out of mutual reverence. It is the kind of connection that does not panic when things grow quiet, because its roots go deeper than excitement. And what's more, as time reveals the constancy of the other, it also reveals the constancy of your own heart. Are you still drawn to them when life is ordinary? Do you still feel peace when the emotion calms? Do your prayers still rise with their name, not in desperation, but in gratitude? Time gives you the gift of watching your love mature, not into something less passionate, but into something more profound. Not into fantasy, but into faithfulness. We often ask God for confirmation in moments, through dreams, verses, conversations, and He does speak in such ways, but more often He speaks in consistency. He confirms through patterns. When peace lingers, when respect remains, when both hearts continue to choose one another without manipulation or fear, that is a sign not manufactured by human effort, but sustained by divine intention. God is not in a rush. He is eternal, and when he orchestrates a union, he does so with the confidence of one who sees beyond the horizon. You may be tempted to force clarity, to accelerate decisions, to cling to the urgent need for certainty. But the Lord often whispers, "Wait, watch, let time reveal what emotion cannot." Because when something is from him, it will not vanish with time. It will be clarified by it. True confirmation is not only that someone enters your life, but that they remain. They show up not once, but repeatedly, with love, with integrity, with intention. Their words are not only beautiful in the beginning, but reliable in the long term. Their commitment is not a reaction, but a decision, a daily one. So pay attention to what persists. Listen to what lasts. Watch not only how someone treats you in the moment of attraction, but how they treat you in the seasons that follow. When the shine dims, when life gets hard, when patience is tested. God's confirmation is not simply in how a relationship begins, but in how it endures. Because what he ordains, he sustains. What he begins, he completes. And if you are walking with him, you can trust that he is not only the author of your love story, but the sustainer of it through time. The soul that is led by God will not rush ahead of him. It will rest and wait and trust the steady work of his hand, because when it's real it remains, and that is how you will know. There is a kind of peace that the world can imitate but never truly give. A peace not born of ideal circumstances, not the result of perfect compatibility, but a stillness that settles in the soul even when questions remain unanswered. When God is leading you to your soulmate, one of the most profound signs is this: an inner peace that surpasses understanding. Not all peace is equal. There is a counterfeit peace that comes from control, when everything seems to go according to your plan, when there are no disruptions, when you feel certain because you are the one holding the pen. But that peace is fragile. It crumbles at the first sign of uncertainty. True peace, the kind that guards your heart even in mystery, does not come from having all the answers, but from trusting the one who does. This peace is not loud. It does not need to shout to convince you. In fact, it often comes when everything else is quiet, when the emotions settle, when the conversation pauses, when you sit alone in thought. And there it is, not an explanation but a knowing, not a feeling of giddy excitement, but a sense of rest, as if your soul exhales for the first time in a long while. You may not understand why you're drawn to them. You may not know how your stories will fully intertwine. There may be practical questions yet to solve, fears yet to calm, timing yet to align. But still, the peace remains, and that peace does not ignore your questions. It simply carries them with gentleness. It tells you that you don't have to solve everything now. That love, when led by God, unfolds layer by layer, not all at once. And so the peace remains, not because you know what the future holds, but because you trust who holds the future. Peace is often the Spirit's confirmation when words fall short. It's the divine nod when logic hesitates. You may try to overthink it, analyze every moment, wonder if you're being foolish. But every time you return to silence and stillness, you find your heart at rest, not restless. You feel drawn not in fear, but in quiet hope. You're not escaping yourself to be with them. You're becoming more yourself. The storm within you stills, not because they are perfect, but because something about this connection feels like coming home. God's peace does not come to decorate your emotions. It comes to anchor your spirit. And when he is leading you to your soulmate, that peace will come in waves, sometimes unexpectedly, in a conversation that goes deeper than expected. In a moment of vulnerability that feels safe, not exposed, in their presence, you are not trying to perform or persuade. You are simply present, and that presence, that unforced ease, is where peace quietly builds its home. What's more, the peace you feel will not only concern them, it will concern you. You will feel peace not just about who they are, but about who you are when you're with them. You won't feel smaller. You won't feel lost. You'll feel aligned. It will feel less like striving and more like surrender. And in that surrender, you'll find yourself trusting God's timing, even when the pace is slow. You won't feel the need to grasp or rush or manipulate. You'll wait not passively but peacefully. The peace of God isn't absent of discernment. It is discernment's companion. It quiets the noise of fear and magnifies what is real. It gives you clarity, not by telling you everything at once, but by whispering, "You're safe here, I'm in this." And when others might question, when doubts might arise, when circumstances shift, you won't be shaken easily, because your confidence is no longer in outcomes, but in the peace that refuses to leave you. This peace will become your compass. It won't always make sense to those around you. It might not even make sense to you at first, but peace doesn't require permission from understanding. It simply exists where God is near. And when God is leading, peace walks ahead, making a way. It lingers behind, confirming you've not wandered. It surrounds, assures, and gently steadies your steps. And perhaps that is the truest sign of all, not how much your heart races, but how deeply your soul rests. Because when God writes the story, he does not just bring two people together. He brings peace to the center.